Yeah, so
Yes, we're live.
we're recording our rants.
Cool.
So I'll give you guys a bit of context. So Adam and I I think we met online like a year and a half ago. We're both in that sort of futurist category, and when we met at the Deloitte thing, how did this start? We just started talking once a week and recording our conversations, and the aim was to talk about anything nomadic, and we've gone on different tangents every time we've talked, but it's been good to just record our rants. And last week, Adam said, "Oh, we should get a nomadic lady involved in this conversation. We haven't had any nomadic." And then I immediately thought of you. So
yeah,
get it, and yeah. And we had some conversations at School of Life, Adam, about this nomadic thing, and yeah. So that's sort of the context. Is there anything else to add?
I don't think so. It's quite interesting that it started out as a sort of nomadic. I mean, that was the theme of the whole thing, nomadic entrepreneurship or something. But I think it's much broader than that. It's sort of we've had discussions about a lot of other things, but it always seems to come back to nomadic entrepreneurship, which is interesting.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the theme we started with, and hopefully it's going to be the theme that we end with as well, if there is an end to this.
Well, Ed, we've been talking about like schools and stuff, and how we can design a school, and Adam's been kind of, what was that thing you said last week? Like, how do we create a design process for like systems thinking, or like systems entrepreneurship? Remember you were talking about that?
Yeah. Oh, it's a week. It's a long time ago.
Can I ask, when you say it always comes back to nomadic entrepreneurship, this might actually open up the can of worms for the discussion, but what for you then is that? Like, when you land back at nomadic entrepreneurship, how do you guys define that?
I think for me, it's someone said that to me. I had a meeting about the other day. All my wisdom comes from my travels, so that's sort of one aspect of it. And also, there's something around what Kevin Kelly is doing now. He's sort of traveling around, experiencing a lot of things and writing about it. And he's sort of using the globe or the planet as a school or a playground. So seeing the whole planet as a classroom. And I think that doesn't necessarily have to be a school for entrepreneurs. It's a school of life, of course, but we sort of focused on entrepreneurs. That's sort of our segment now that we're looking at. And I'm very interested in entrepreneurship. So I think it could have been a sort of school for chefs instead, using the planet as a school for chefs. But it's just that we're sort of interested in entrepreneurship, I guess.
Oh yeah, okay. Then that's what I was trying to get. I was trying to understand whether, because when you put nomadic, you can put nomadic in front of anything really, and whether you were meaning because what you guys are really on about is teaching entrepreneurs, or if there's something special about what nomadic entrepreneurship means. Like that, I was just trying to pick that apart because I was fascinated by like, oh, well, what does it mean to be a nomadic entrepreneur versus just a regular entrepreneur?
Does it come from the digital nomad concept, or does it come from the digital nomad thing originally, Eddie, or?
Yeah, but I think it was more riffing off the KNO thing, like the polymath.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's true. I didn't mention this. I was going to talk to you about Franz Ferdinand and letters of recommendation last time, but we didn't have time to do that.
Yeah, what's that?
That was just a side step here now, but
no, we're all tangent.
There's no side steps here. It's all
we talked. but we travel sort of back in the day, like 200-300 years ago in Europe. They had something called the Grand Tour, which was sort of young, rich kids learning things by traveling. So they went from sort of, if they lived in Germany or whatever, they went to Spain, Italy, Britain to hang out and learn the language and learn the culture there. And there's some element of that that's quite fascinating, and we could sort of use probably today. I mean, it's an elitist thing, so in that sense it's not good, but there's elements of it that's still good, like the sort of traveling around for a couple of years, learning 3-4 different languages and 3-4 different cultures. That's really hard. I mean, there's no system for that today that I can see immediately. I mean, you can go to one other country and learn one other culture and language, but they actually did 3 or 4 different, which is really cool.
Wow.
So also this, I spoke to this with someone, and how that worked was often that you had a letter of recommendation from someone in your country. So like say Franz Ferdinand, for example, someone mentioned, he handed out a lot of recommendations back, you know, I don't know when, but a long time ago. And the student or the traveler had this letter of recommendation, could then get access to the knowledge and wisdom of the people he showed it to, so other people, aristocracy or whatever. So we were talking about what would be the sort of the letter of recommendation today. When you go to Berlin or when you go to San Francisco, what is your letter of recommendation? Is that sort of clout or trust or reputation online, or what is it?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Because for me, I often say, hey, if you go, you're going to Berlin, you should go and check out this. You're going to Gothenburg, or you're going to Copenhagen, go and talk to these people. You're going to Bali. But whenever I sort of have to know who it is I'm recommending and know the person I'm recommending them to meet. So there's some sort of, it's really interesting, that sort of trust thing, you know.
Yeah, because that social trust is what you developed, and when it's someone that you know, then you can personally recommend them, and you know your word is good enough. But then there's only certain people you could do that with. Like you couldn't just give a letter to someone with your name on it.
No.
Unless,
and also,
but I don't know. Maybe if you were maybe if you were a big wig enough, then you could. But I don't even know if that would work this day and age. Thinking about it.
No, because the idea is not really that either. The idea is that you think that this might be something in the meeting of those two people that can spark something else. You know, isn't that the whole idea? Like I mean, some people I wouldn't put together, even if they're amazing people, but I don't know. There's something strange with that's a sort of super connector thing, you know.
Yeah, the connector thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think for a school for nomadic entrepreneurship, I think the letter of recommendation or its modern version is a key. I don't know how, but I think it has to be there somehow. Because ideally at school, the curriculum is sort of open. It's an itinerary is the curriculum, and some people are coming up, you know, as sort of teachers or wise elders or change makers, helping the entrepreneur on the way. But we as sort of game makers, or we as organizers, have to find a way to sort of hand out these letters of recommendations that are appropriate to each student. And how are we going to find that out, you know?
You know, I was...
Well, just a side
No, yeah, it's a good one. You've got both of us silent, so you've got us both wheels turning. That's
Pondering. Just to tangent again, but related tangent. We've talked a few times, and maybe I talked about this to you too, about the idea of like a curriculum for like helping someone become like a systemic human being. So what would the course look like? And I've had this concept, and I think I've shared it with you, shared it with a few others, but like when you're a systems human, that is, you see in systems, you feel in systems, you understand things as systems, like you're you're a kind of different human being. And I know in my journey that took me a while to get there. And I've always had this thought of like, what would it look like to, part A, you teach systems thinking, so you help like equip people with that. Then you take them to the next stage, which is like activities to help them feel in systems. So feel that, like, you could do a thing on interdependence and a meditation on that. Then from there you go to like, you start being in a systems world, so you like physically feel the interdependence. And then how do you act and do stuff with those three experiences in mind? And there's something around like that kind of learning journey that, and it's probably related to the nomadic thing, but yeah, there's just something fascinating, I feel, that when you can not only see the multidimensional nature of things, but when you truly feel that, and then you begin to devise solutions because you see reality in its how it actually, in its interconnectedness and its intricacies and its feedback loops and how everything affects everything else. You can see reality clearer, which is a multidimensional reality.
I think there's something in travel, because when you're traveling, you're moving between nodes in a network, or you're within a system. So you're sort of being in the system, and you understand the system by traveling inside it. So if you see the planet as a system, or Asia or Australia, you can understand it by studying it at home. When you're a kid, you study geography. So that's sort of a way of preparing your systems thinking about that system. But you cannot get systems feeling and being and acting unless you are in that, or you travel in that system. That's how I see it. Or
because I see it as like
online, maybe.
What were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to say that. Oh, was it me or him?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just thinking that one of the things about travel that I've found is the fact that they always say like the biggest value of traveling is to come back to your home and see it differently, and I think it's actually about finding new kind of comfort in the unknown, I guess. So like when you I liked your example of, so you study geography and you kind of say, okay, so I live here in Australia and there are other continents out there, like I'll use myself as an example, like I grew up in the US, right? So I live in the US and there are other continents out there. There's some place called Australia and there's a place called this. And it's like there's a huge kind of us and them theory going on there, where it's like, this is me, that's them. And like probably US and Australia is a great example because, it took 3 years for my family to come out here. Still Americans are like, you live in Australia? What? But now Australia is my home as well. So it wasn't that I even just visiting it, but it was actually just any kind of making your own stories and your own connections to it. And also realizing, for as much as it's different, it's actually pretty much the same. Like, there's all the same stuff. Same in any country I've ever lived in. Like, actually, you end up finding more similarities than you do differences in the end, as you really get into it. And that's sort of, it reminds me then of, Eddie, what you were saying about the patterns and it just seems like that's when you start to see things as like interconnected and all kind of like the loops happening and all that. I think it takes something about having a personal connection to it to make it back to human scale again and not something other. I don't know. That's just I think it's immersion. The sort of immersion in something else. It's we don't know enough about that, I think.
What do you mean?
There's so much more. I mean, we know that it's travel is good, people say, but there's not enough research on why travel is so good, But there's travel as a tourist, which basically maybe just helps you see things,
or like or travel as an observer versus like travel as like see, when I hear nomadic, I think of it different than travel in that a nomad actually lives in these places. Now we can define what we mean by live. Doesn't mean they built a house there and they have a family there and whatever, but like there's a difference between when you go there to impact that in some way, like to actually be part of it in some way, versus just like I want to kind of be the fly on the wall in China and just see how they are, and like I'm still an American in China just kind of watching and going, oh, like maybe I'll go to McDonald's so I can have American food, or like what you stay on the edge of it. But you could also spend only a week in China and be really immersed and actually feel, even though it's not like you've spent years there and lived there and worked there, whatever, like the way that you're there could actually make it feel like a home, or make it feel like you'll recognize you've not gotten it all, but you've actually gotten a piece of China under your skin or something. And I don't know if that's what you're kind of what you were touching on just a second ago, but that for me is the difference between nomadic and just travel.
Yeah. I was having a conversation with a guy named Simon Terry, and then I had a conversation with another futurist. Anyway, what we kind of played around with is like in the same way as an insect has lots of sub-insects, and stuff like that. And we were talking about like nomadic. Nomadic is the grandparent archetype, and there's all these sub-archetypes or mutations in it. And I think there's like a difference between the pilgrim and the traveler and the like diplomat. And anyways, and it was really fascinating. I forgot to tell you guys. So the other day, it was so fucking awesome. I love the internet. I was like Googling Carl Jung, just reading some Carl Jung stuff, and I came across like, his term individuation. Are you guys familiar with that? Like,
no, I don't know that.
Individuation is Jung's term for like the psychologically mature self and or the the higher self, and oftentimes when the process of individuation is bringing wholeness to your I can't even articulate myself right now, to your polar opposites, right? Anyway, so I was researching that, and I went down this rabbit hole, and I found this guy from fucking Montreal, and he had this video on individuation, and I clicked further, and he had this these videos only had like 12 to 20 views, right? So he just did it. And then he had a video on the way of the pilgrim.
Oh, cool.
About how to live life like a pilgrim, he was like really deeply going into the pilgrim persona, and he was like he went no money for 2 years and was like homeless, and I looked him up. He was this amazing dude, and he has this thing in Montreal called the Pilgrim House, and he invites people in to do this Pilgrim House thing. Someone on my Facebook knew him, and then 2 days later, I was having a chat with him on Skype, talking about pilgrims and nomads and stuff. Anyway, the point of sharing that story is like that whole nomadic thing on the internet as well. Like, that's the explorer thing, but the pilgrim thing has a different quality as well. I'm just fascinated by the subtle differences and the stances, the design principles, the actions, the projects that come with these different types of sub-personas of the nomadic thing, and then what would it look like to have them at different stages of the process? Like, do I have to be a pilgrim right now? Like, I might go over the exact same landscape while I'm traveling, but the dominant archetype would inform what you're learning as you're engaging with all the system around you. Does that make
Yeah, and I think that when you tell that story, even about how you see it in terms of the internet and like that side of Knowmadic,
Yeah.
then I actually, it really, the Knowmadic with the K means even more to me because like the way that I talk, like as a consultant, the way that I talk about knowledge creation
Yeah.
is like that. Well, knowledge doesn't exist out there, right? It's only created in us,
Yeah.
and so that like I'm just thinking out loud here, but that actually like connects a lot with what I was just saying about the traveler versus the nomad or whatever. About like the reason why a place or a video even is actually now a part of you is because you've like used it to create knowledge. Like you've not just kind of like viewed a video like that was cool. You've actually gone, oh, and it made me think about this, and like I actually have new thought because I watched that video that only 20 people viewed or whatever, and I like kind of I almost had a conversation with that guy through his video, and we together created like a new idea.
Yeah.
And so the idea that knowledge is created between people means that even when you're scouring the internet, like it's not just sort of browsing.
Yeah, and you can actually find that person and talk to them now. You can actually have a conversation with them. It's not just like some author in a book who lives in this distant land. Like you could talk to anyone if you want to. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
but it's
true.
because you're keen on making new knowledge with those people. That's what's kind of interesting.
Right.
That's what I find really interesting. It's like is the amount of knowledge making opportunities there are changes, and the idea that I go to China to actually create new knowledge even if I'm there just for a week. So that's what makes China now resonant for me. I don't know why I'm using that example, but like just like another place, like in terms of the travel thing, like another place. If I create new knowledge through that experience, then that's like in some way a part of me and connected, and like it's not another place now. It's now like a place that's part of me. I don't know. That makes sense.
It's like you're sort of connecting neurons in the global brain, like
yeah.
When you're talking to that guy, you're linking those neurons together in the global brain.
Oh my God!
So,
you just blew my mind with that phrase.
Oh my God! That's like yeah. Well,
but the problem, or my question is, is it because in the past we've had to do that by traveling, right?
Yeah.
But now we can do it on Skype. But is there something we're missing in that? Like if you would meet this guy, in Canada, if you would go there, would something else happen?
Because it's much deeper. Because this is the whole thing we talked about last time about the dimensional tension. Like we're talking in two-dimensional land right now. Which only allows certain knowledge flow. But if we were sitting around in three-dimensional reality and then talking, and then if the design of the environment was beautiful, that would probably provoke a four-dimensional thing, which is it's like a peak experience where time disappears because you're so in flow. So, sorry, my camera just.
Or you would, or you would. Then we would talk about how three dimensions are too simplistic. We need more, Well, maybe once we have the technology, we're always going to want a new dimension.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard of the Book of Awakenings by Mark Nepo, which is like a daily meditation. So my housemate Sarah has started a text cast of a chapter a day. So every day she reads us a chapter, basically. Because each of the chapters is one day of the year, and so we've gone. It's June now, so we've been listening to one a day the entire year. But yesterday's chapter was around counting by touch, and it was all about how touch matters and the fact that not to count by numbers but to count by touch, and that the kinesthetic value of actually touching something is a different way of registering it in your mind. And the world that we've basically started to register the world by numbers, like you can blow that out to the most extreme of how we see the world in terms of money and like whatever, and then but it loses all its like realness, I guess, and the more that you abstract it out. So I don't know. It's short. I could send it to you guys actually because it's just a short like 2-minute text audio, but that
Cool.
just it reminded me of that because of what you were saying, like can't we do the same by Skype? And I was thinking in my mind, the first thing that came to mind was like you miss touch.
Yep.
And the kinesthetic value of touch is actually just so human that I don't know if we can ever get past that. It's one of the things I wonder about with all the digital, like the direction of digital technology and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder why I still fly all over the world to see people.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I don't Skype with any of my friends overseas. I literally fly every year to go see people all over the world because like I just want to be with them, like, but I actually never call them. I never Skype them.
Same here.
You know, like, there's something about that.
I don't do that. I don't do that either with my old friends.
Yeah.
I do new friends that I've sort of haven't met most of them. But if I met people, I rarely Skype them. There's something weird with that.
Something in that, right?
Well,
Like, even my parents.
You haven't met.
Who you haven't met?
No,
Would you say
I
even his
Skype
parents,
my
who you haven't met?
No,
yeah, I
but,
think I Skype my parents because that's about all they can handle.
Yeah.
Sometimes you want to keep things at a 2-dimensional.
Yeah.
The sort of that knowledge thing you're talking about, how it's the knowledge creation only kind of happens when you're in dynamic flow with people, you know, and like we had that the other day, right? You know, we were in flow, chatting, School of Life.
Yeah.
I think one of my big tensions is, I think like I've got fluency in, I'm just going to call it like network fluency, that is how to use online tools to meet people, to get things done, that kind of thing. And so I'm meeting these people. I know on a 2-dimensional level we have so much in common, and yet talking to them, but I can't be with them. But I know that if I was with them, there would be so much to like that would just emerge. So it's kind of like the treasure chest of tacit knowledge is right in front of you, but because we're talking via the computer, you can't open it. And like I want to travel to just explore what that knowledge, that co-created insight will be, but I don't know what it wants to do with. I just know that you talked about the global brain. It's like the neurons are connecting, online, but they connect deeper face to face, but both of these two strands of connection like help each other. So yeah, I always have this thought in my brain, like we're only just, the physical and digital are only just getting started in how they're merging together into one fluid whole.
Yeah.
So I feel like in the next 10 years, we're just going to, you can't even imagine what kind of things we're going to have. I don't think you'll ever be able to replace 3-dimensional stuff, but it's really fascinating to think what, we're going to have hologram technology soon. Like, that's not that far away. That's like probably...
No, exactly.
No, but
we're going to talk to our parents as holograms instead. Or my daughter will talk to me as a hologram probably instead of Skype. So that's going to be 3 dimensions. But still, I think there are sort of up to 11 dimensions physicians are talking about. And there's, like, humans are so ahead of technology still. So we are interaction through 11 dimensions, hidden dimensions, and technology is sort of coming up to 3 now with holograms and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's it's always going to be better to meet people for real, at least in my life, probably in our lives, maybe not in, or maybe it's going to go so fucking fast, so we're going to have sort of, yeah, we don't know. That's sort of the singularity and that stuff.
Yeah, I think though it's I don't know, my hunch is that it has to do with how much attention do you get of a person, right? So if we're the greatest phrase I love is that we're actually not in the age of information, we're in the age of attention, because that's actually what we're at a deficit for in this year, in this time. And I forget who it was that coined that, but I keep using that now because I love the idea that yes, we're in an age of attention deficit, and that I don't think of it in terms of the dimensions, in terms of whether it's a 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional object or whatever, but more like the dimensions only matter because for me to be on a screen with you, I can actually have some of my attention elsewhere, and it wouldn't you wouldn't notice, like you wouldn't be able to tell, right? So I'm laying on my bed right now, so if you were actually in my room on my bed, it'd be really different and really awkward, but it's not because you're on a screen.
Yeah, that's right.
And so you don't actually feel that awkwardness the same way, or maybe you do and you haven't told me. But so, but you know what I mean. So like it's because like I can hide some of the attention, like I can put some of the attention elsewhere, and it's not clear to you. Whereas we could still be on 2 dimensions, but if I had to power it by being in a certain thing, then I would have to be using all my kind of you'd be getting a lot of different attention from me. My physical, my visual, a lot of my cells would be aiming at engaging with you and nothing else. So I think the more attention demanding it is, that's why text, I just think it's so funny how far we've gone with just how we write to each other. But I never talk to people on phones anymore because I'm just like, oh no, that's crazy. No one deserves that from me. Like, because when I'm texting or whatever, I can do a million other things at the same time, or I can chat while I'm doing that, whatever. So they only get a tiny bit of my attention actually. Whereas I used to be attached to a line of a phone at a certain point in my room, and like I could only do that or whatever. Anyway, I think it has to do with something like that. So I think the more dimensions we get into, the more. Sorry.
Yeah. But when you meet people, like when you have a coffee with someone, before that was sort of a space where you had full attention. You gave full attention to the person, they gave full attention to you, which has now sort of changed because we all are texting while we're having coffee and sort of checking in and doing other things.
Yeah.
So, and even in the cinema, or those things, watching movies, that's my attention span is too. I can't even. I start to do things in the middle of the film. But there's not many things anymore that we do where another person have full attention.
I mean, that's where I think like Eddie talked about when you went to what was the lectures thing, the lectures, and it was such a different kind of immersion experience because you couldn't have technology, and you were like, I can still the time that Eddie and I talked in person. I mean, I think that the walls could have been coming down around us, and we actually would be like, oh yeah, we'll get to that later, like so I think it still does apply. I think we struggle to give all of our attention to anything these days, but actually if you think about when you're in most flow with anything you've done, whether it's like you go running or whatever, which is why exercise becomes such an important one, like when you're actually doing something really physical, you're forced to give it more attention than we're used to these days now. So like, if I'm hiking up a mountain, I can't really pull out my phone and do a text at the same time. But if I'm walking down the street, I've now mastered how I can like sort of half walk and half text or whatever. Like,
but that's the problem with technology. Technology is not advanced enough. Soon you're gonna be able to text while you're running or swimming or whatever, or it's gonna be inside you. Like you're gonna have
and you can, and then you can, and then that means that you'll split attention, and when you actually don't do those things and you just run, it will feel so different. And it will probably make your muscles that much stronger. Like, it will be all that kind of thing that, like, if I actually just run, my health will, my legs will get stronger way faster than if I'm running and texting and
it seems like there's a sort of tension between. Yeah. It seems like there is a tension between technology and... I see there's a tension between technology and attention, and sort of so you have to arrange things like the lectures where you say, no, we can't deal with tech. Like tech is pulling us so strongly, we have to say no to it. and technology is sort of developing new ways to get into our brains. Even when we're running or skiing, you can ski now with Google Glass, and you can sort of send emails while you're climbing or whatever you do. So, but what are we doing? Are we heading? I'm thinking, is that necessarily? Why are we staying away from it? Like, because most people say, this is not good. Like what are we scared of? Are we scared of becoming machines, or sort of what is the underlying psychological fear or driver there?
Well, I'm not scared of technology. I'm scared of us doing more things less well, like less with less attention. You know, doing more things less wholly. And because that's what it's allowed. That's the way we've taken it. That's the way we've gone with it. Whereas I don't think technology is a bad thing at all. I think that there's lots of different ways that we could be using it, and I think we've gotten obsessed with we can use technology to do more things, but like in quotes, what we're not accepting is that less fully, Yeah,
that's true. You're not going to be a better snowboarder just because you have Google Glass. Probably the opposite.
Well, no, you might be better. You could. I mean, technology is an amplification of our capabilities. Like, I think that's basically what technology is by its core definition from the time of cavemen when they made fire. Yep. That was a technology to amplify what we could do as humans, basically, like what we physically could do. So it's about what do we want to amplify, like. A power tool amplifies a power screwdriver amplifies my finger being able to dig a hole into something, So it's an amplify is not really the word. Maybe that I don't know, but you get what I mean.
The exoskeleton.
Augment is probably the word. It's like augmenting to augment my own capability as a human being. So we've chosen to mostly these days be really, not mostly, but what we're complaining about is it augmenting our ability to multitask or something.
Or is it, what is it you want to augment? Yeah, that's the question. We have to ask that question. Do we want to augment? Do we want to augment our capability, or do we want to augment our happiness and enjoyment of snowboarding, or or do I want to be a better snowboarder, or do I want to have more fun snowboarding?
Yeah.
That's probably where technology
has to.
So
it's like if you did drugs and went snowboarding, look, that would amplify your senses and go like, "Fuck, that was amazing, that skill," whatever, like, and and you can take drugs to a point of where people say drugs are bad or whatever, or you can hear there's plenty of people who think it's good, like, shit, it's awesome to snowboard. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I've never done drugs and snowboarded, just by the way. But I think technology is doing that same, it's doing that same thing. So I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's like...
Technology is a drug. It's sort of like a drug that...
Totally.
It's a legal drug, I guess. I mean, it's a legal
I like that.
Amplification or a augmented experience.
Yeah. So I think.
But I like that because then you have the sort of addiction as well. If you use that metaphor,
Yeah.
You have when do you become addicted to technology? And I mean, it's sort of now we already feel with our things, but when we're going to have them more embodied, it's going to be even easier to be addicted. I mean, the Google Glass, you can't, it's going to be strapped onto your head always. So people are not going to be annoyed. Like people now telling me off for texting or being on Facebook all the time because they can see it. My focus is on the screen. But when I have the Google Glass on, they're not going to know that I'm not giving them my full attention.
Yeah, that's the scary bit, right? That's the, I think that's what I worry about in humanity, right? It's like kind of is when we lose the sense of what attention, like I don't know, or how do I think they will tell. Maybe we just don't know. Like I think people will be able to tell in different ways because I think it's it's so deep within us to know when we're getting a whole person or we're not.
Yes.
So it will be harder. It will show up in different ways.
Yeah.
So what are the technologies to augment our attention in better ways? Like, if this is an emerging, this digital obesity, digital addiction thing, like, and this is going to get bigger and bigger, what are the, like, the how can technology amplify or augment something that is more aligned? Because often when I'm hearing a lot of these conversations along similar lines. Like, it's taking our attention, we're addicted.
Yeah.
Like, just hear this stuff a lot. But so if that's happening, but like, you can't just go off the net all the time. It's going to continue being around us. So what's the more integrated, less Frankenstein digital technology look like?
There's something around technology and its relation to speed.
Yes.
Technology has always been about speed, right? That's a sort of metaphor. We can do things faster and quicker and more efficient. But are there any technologies that strive towards slow instead, that can help us become slow? It seems like a paradox, but I mean, for example, there's a big slow movement happening, in food and in other areas. Or mindfulness is sort of the same thing. So using technology for mindfulness, like Elise is doing with Mindful in May, for example, is really cool. She uses technology against itself in a weird way. It's a cool thing, So, but I think we need more of those technologies that works to augment the things that it was necessarily not invented to do. Or look to, again, away from speed, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think it's not a problem of technology. It's a problem of culturally what we're valuing, and therefore what we're aiming technology at. So if we're in the world, I come from the company Second Road that goes on this whole thing about the second and first road and how the Western world took Aristotle's analytics and just ran crazy as if that was the only path to solving problems, and they forgot about rhetoric and conversation and design as a way to kind of think about things, right? So that's the Western world has definitely gone analytics, efficiency, productivity. Like, that's the value, that's the core value underlying it all. So therefore, of course, that's what we put in technology to. I'm just thinking, like, I'm thinking of your question and seeing, like, what examples come to mind if I can think of places that are using it. They would be using it because their core values are different. They'd be using it in that way, like the Mindful in May. But just trying to think. Slow down.
I thought about the project the other day in the shower, actually.
Yeah?
I had
Oh, he's frozen.
Uh-oh.
Oh, technology fail. Okay. So it's just you and me talking now. Yeah.
The closest I can think of in his question, though, is actually in some ways more about depth, like in science and stuff. It's like actually seeing further and more deeply. Maybe that's just because that to me seems slower, but it's actually more about depth than it is about speed. To sort of.
You know what? I always get tired. Like, I get tired having epic conversations via Skype. I never get tired having epic conversations over a coffee.
Yeah, true, huh?
It's like it's like you're diverting all this energy into a screen. It just I don't know. I can't ever do. I'm never fully in flow, over Skype or even if you're the most amazing person, and I do have so much flow with them, I just never can fully get into it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I actually think a lot of it has to do with movement, but this is me personally. Like, in general, like, so I actually can get more in flow on a phone conversation than on a Skype conversation because I actually am moving when I talk.
Like you're walking around or something.
Yeah, like I'm walking or I'm just moving. Like just physically, I don't have to be like lining myself up with a screen and staying still in order for you to even like make sure that I'm focusing in the right place so that you can see me.
Yeah.
And it's almost like I'm not sure what I'm looking. That's why I don't know if it's the 2-dimension or 3-dimension that matters actually, because like I don't. Sure, I lose the fact of seeing you if I go on a phone, but I don't even know if I'm really seeing you guys now because we're freezing and we're
Yeah, true.
like, you know, I might as well just have a picture of you in front of me and it's the same. Cause,
yeah, I'm the same.
See, now we got all. Anyway.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you go. It's your turn.
No, I just wanted to say I'm the same when I'm on the phone. I'm always walking, and people are really annoyed with that. Like, say, sit down. Why can't you? When you're on the phone, why can't you sit down? Maybe that's the sort of nomadic thing within me as well. Like I can't.
Maybe it is.
Sort of agree. I want to walk around. I want to take the computer and walk around instead, because it's weird to sit and stare in.
Totally. I find it so hard to be still. I know there's a guy I spoke to in Geelong who's got a co-working space he's doing there, and he's actually working on starting a co-working bus, which I think is the greatest idea ever.
Oh.
That basically, you know, your office is a bus, and so they just pick you up and they take you to different places, and
that's
you know, you might be in the bus for 3 hours and then land somewhere and hang out there and work for a little while, and then get back in the bus and work somewhere else.
Yeah, that's awesome. Co-working bus, awesome.
Yeah, well, I can connect you to him because he's really trying to make this happen and like get a Wi-Fi enabled bus or whatever.
Really?
That's cool. That's awesome.
Because he thinks, yeah, I think it's a great idea. And then you become a member of that bus, and so like that's it. The bus goes different places.
Yeah, you can go to the beach or you can go to the wherever you want to go.
Exactly.
You know what? And it evokes for me that excitement you get at school when you go on an excursion. You know, you're so excited, and mom and dad had to fill out the form, and you're like, yeah.
Yeah, but then it's also like continual stimulation. So if I'm sitting at a desk in an office, particularly if I'm in my office by myself, but even in a co-working space, I mean, that's the value of co-working, is that things are kind of continually like moving a little bit. But, you know, if I'm sitting at an office in a desk, staring at the same wall or whatever, I got to get up and take a break. If I'm on a bus and the windows, I'm going by like all different kinds of sights, I can just like stare out the window for 5 minutes, get some motion. Like I feel movement, which, you know, just like they say, just like those treadmill desks, like just by walking while you're working, that physically does something to your mind as well. Anyway.
Knowmadic co-working.
Yeah, totally. Truly. I might not have much more time left in me, to be honest, though, guys.
I've got to go too, because
I didn't know how long you planned this to be honest.
Probably about an hour. Yeah, it's almost 3.
I normally would go on forever, but I have a massive migraine, and I decided to take the call with you guys anyway. But I'm just like,
well,
so if I look a little bit like, I'm gonna go immediately into my. That's why I'm on my bed right now. Is that the minute that this closes down, I'm going under the pillow to try to shut the lights and.
When are you coming to Melbourne?
Again, hopefully soon. Well, wait to hear from School of Life, and we'll see. Cross fingers. So I sent it all yesterday. It had to be in by 5 p.m. And of course, as I do, I sent it at 4:45.
Cool.
Anyway,
well, I look forward to
hopefully soon.
Cool.
Great to meet you, Adam. At least virtually. And
yeah, nice. Great to meet you. I hope to see you in real life soon.
Yeah, where are you?
Perth.
You're in Perth, okay. Cool. Well, let's plan another one of these.
I want to have a good reason to come over. Yeah.
I'm always up for one of these, so anytime I'll be your nomadic lady.
Woohoo! Yeah, cool.
Thanks.
All right, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.